We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
And welcome to Toward Anarchy. I'm Michael Storm. Thank you so much for joining me. And wherever you are finding the show today, click, tap, smash, slap that like button around, whatever you got to do to get it to respond to you, pay attention to you, let me know that you're out there. It's the best way that you can support me, and do it now before we get into this thing, because once we get into it, you are not going to want to stop. It will be another great one, as it always is. Follow along at towardanarchy.com. Let's see, this episode will be 2608. They're just piling up already this year. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. Get yourself a free copy of Economics in One Lesson, possibly. I give one away every month to some listener. And if you're there at towardanarchy.com, you find all the links. You'll find the information for my guest. And my guest is Clementine Moss. She's an author. The book is From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. She's also a spiritual counselor and drummer for, of course, if she's writing a book about drumming, right? Hopefully she's a drummer too. She's a drummer for Zepparella, and she has a couple albums of her own, Clem and the Clear Light, and Nothing Will Keep Us Apart. And she knows about the rock star lifestyle, but she also knows about this Zen space. And I thought it would be great to have this conversation. So, Clementine, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, me too. I'm a musician myself. I play multiple instruments. I also play the drums. And so it's one of these things that, there's a connection. I put in musical instruments in that little search engine thing, and it says, hey, this person's a musician. You might like to talk to this person. I thought, okay, sure, machine, tell me what to do.
The machine.
I really did think it would be fun to talk to you when I read that you have this book, and then it's about this sort of finding a sort of spiritual enlightenment in the chaos of sort of mass crowds out there on the road, having all this time to sort of self-check, give plenty of time to take a look at the ego and things. I've always found that there's a problem with music and that particular artistry in general, because musicians have oftentimes, particularly writers of the words anyway, have these sort of cathartic moments of realization or powerful moments of things that have happened in their life, and they write about them and they put them down on paper. And most of us, when we do this sort of exercise, we put them down on paper and we light the paper on fire and we say goodbye to the thing. Instead, the musician gets up on every stage every night and plays this same song about this emotion and these things that happen in their life over and over and over again. And it just has to be, I think only the best and the brightest of them are able to keep that in its position, keep those things that have happened and all of that, whatever it is that can build up away from the stage. But then you turn on, sort of YouTube and watch a video or something, and you see some guy just going off on stage, losing his mind because, maybe he spent a little too much time on the road.
Yeah, I know. That's really interesting, isn't it? Like the musician who writes something so personal and then has to like sing it over and over. I saw John Mayer do this really beautiful thing. I'd never really listened to John Mayer much, and somebody invited me to his concert, and he did this gorgeous thing, which was that he introduced the song that made him popular, right? And it's Your Body is a Wonderland, right? A long time, and it was a long time ago. And so he introduced the song, and he said, this song, for many years, I would cringe when I had to play it because it was one of the first songs that I wrote, and it was and when I sing it now, I can see all of the flaws and how it speaks to the way that I wanted to be, but it wasn't quite there yet. And yet I have to sing this song over and over. And he said, and now I just recognize that this is the song that brought me here to the place that I am. And so let's just celebrate all of that time in our lives when we're blossoming and we weren't quite as perfected as we would like to be. And yet we need to honor that time, of making mistakes and stuff. And I thought it was just such a beautiful way to kind of reconnect with his younger self, and then, I think for a lot of the artists, like hopefully you write a song that's very personal to you, but also has a part of it that is universal, so that if you have to sing that song for the next 20 years, you're connecting to that universal feeling, I mean, I feel bad for the guys who have to sing the song, about like, I don't know, like the activities in their lives that they no longer do, like party all the time or whatever it is when they're 50. But that's just kind of, you have to kind of,
Well, I gotta say, I've been
yeah,
finding it kind of sad watching some of these guys grow a little bit older. Some of them do it a little more gracefully than others. I think
yeah.
Metallica has definitely managed to pull it off so far. They don't look as bad as some of those guys up there do trying to perform. But then I look at somebody like maybe an Axl Rose or somebody like that, and then I remember, oh yeah, I saw him in 1987. They weren't that great then either. I mean, the musicians were, but Axl himself wasn't necessarily. He was always sort of, letting somebody else sing. Vince Neil too, another one. But it's been, you watch some of those guys and it's amazing. They are still, they sound just as good as they ever did. And then some of them, they start to fall apart a little bit. And it's exactly like you said. It's like you're sort of 70 years old up there singing about the rock and roll lifestyle. And you haven't really lived the rock and roll lifestyle in probably 20, 30 years,
I know. It would be tricky if that's what you're singing about. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it'd be so much more. I think I'm glad I didn't become a rock star in that sense. In a lot of senses, really, there's the idea that had I, had more money and more leisure time in my younger years, I may not have made it to my older years.
I kind of feel that way too. In my music career, I never, like made it to, say touring on a bus or anything. But I look back at the time when I was really touring all like kind of nonstop, touring in a van, having to load my own gear, having to, set up everything, having, all of that. It's like I still was I was pretty like wild as far as lifestyle at that time. And, because I was younger, I could kind of handle it. But I look back and I think, boy, if I was on a bus and the only thing I had to do all day was be on stage for an hour and, everything else is taken care of, I think I probably would have gotten into a lot of trouble, as far as addiction or something like that. It's like kind of hard work kind of kept me from going down those roads, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the lifestyle proves it, right? I think you
Hmm.
see it repeatedly throughout history. You see the guys that can handle it, they handle it, they make it, they're there, and they learn, they become humble. Most of them, some of them still make it all the way there and aren't so humble. But I think a lot of the guys that just can't do it. I mean, we're visiting their graves and listening to music they made 30, 40 years ago, and not to the stuff they're making today because they didn't make it.
Yeah, it's strange. A lot of people get into music. People get into music for a lot of different reasons, right? And I think the ones that seem to have staying power are the ones that are always trying to get better. Are always they're always trying to improve, they're fueled by the craft of it. And, some people come out fully formed and then they don't have anywhere to go, maybe that's more of a way to say it for somebody like maybe Jimi Hendrix or something like that, where it seemed, that he just, it's almost like he kind of knew that he was here for a short amount of time, and that kind of burned like a fireball rather than the slow burn, right?
Yeah, right. It kind of seems like that with some of them. It's like they know that their time is short, and they or maybe not. Maybe it's just that's who they are. They just put that out, and that's what they wanted, and that's all they got, and that's all they needed. And
Mm-hmm.
and presumably, maybe particularly the ones that didn't do anything to themselves. Died with a smile on their face in some sense. They completed what they wanted to complete. They did the rock star thing. They put the music out there. They felt the emotion. They did the nights, and now it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, we connect so much to people who really put their heart on their sleeve, and those people are, it's difficult to live that way. And I think that we see that over and over again, where it's when you're that open and you have so little boundary to yourself and your expression. And then for the rest of us, we're always trying to open ourselves up more in order to bring people in. So some people are kind of naturally open that way, and other people, kind of have to work at it. And I think that kind of lack of humility or that posturing that you see on stage, a lot of the time, I think, are people who they, they're trying to find their way to be that open, and yet it's terrifying for them, and so they put on a kind of mask or an act,
Yeah.
of
Sometimes
that.
literally, right?
That's right.
Sometimes they put on
That's
those
right.
masks. You really can't see who they are, and it's all, and then it's about the performance. So, right, they're separating themselves from the performance, and they
Yeah.
want you to see this and not this thing that they are underneath. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you end up writing a book about this kind of thing, about thinking about this on the road? And then because I know as a musician, I don't want to write a book. I want to tell a story in a song at most.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I started writing about, because I've had such a long meditation practice, right? And I'm really kind of, for a long time, I've been kind of a spiritual seeker. And I started to see how, all of that off of the road meditation was affecting my being on the road. Just being so aware of the way that I would be called down these compulsive actions. When I'm on the road, it's just like, I get very little sleep, I work really hard, and all of these, it's a completely different mindset than the kind of self-care of like really being silent and contemplative when I'm off the road. And I started to see like, actually, I'm the same person. It's just that it's showing up in a different way. And I started thinking, we always hear like, oh, you should be mindful. Oh, you should meditate for all of these benefits and stuff. But I thought, my music career is a really good metaphor to show why we do that, why we are contemplative, why we meditate, what is the benefit, right? Because I could see it, when I'm sitting on the drum kit and I'm distracted because I'm playing at altitude and my body isn't working the way I want it to, and I start to panic in my head. How do I find that center within myself to be able to put on a good show, to be able to, do all of the things that are required of me without freaking out or without making it all about me? Yeah.
Well, everything is so different every time, right? It's the same, but it's different. There's always a
Hmm.
little bit different thing that you have to adjust to this, whether it's the size of the stage or whatever it is, the distance traveled. There's so many things. There's so many variables involved in every little thing. I can't imagine trying to center myself without having some sort of practice, some sort of realistic view of what it is I am doing and who I am out there every night trying to make all those pieces fit together and make it happen. It's funny. Sit back, Kid Rock in the news right now, all upset about Ticketmaster and all this, and making claims that somebody who's spent a lifetime rocking out and on the road should know better, and it's an interesting thing to see somebody so intimate and close within a system like that, and to have them be so unaware of everything else involved. I believe I get the impression that somebody like Kid Rock has to be so wrapped up in himself to realize that the just the logistics of trying to secure venues and do all of the things that's involved in getting a venue and getting the place booked and filling it with the people and putting out the tickets and all of these things. And it's like, well, okay, maybe you can do that, but do you want to show up at the show and play, or do you want to sell tickets? Which one is it? I get that you want to do both. Obviously, you don't want to play to an empty room, but at some point you have to let somebody else do it. And if you let somebody else do the other things that you can't do, that's what smart people do: surround themselves with the other people who can do the things that they can't do or don't want to do or whatever. And let them do that, and you have to pay them for it, and they have to have the infrastructure in the place. It was REM that tried to do that years, or no, not REM. It was Pearl Jam. That's right. It was Pearl Jam that tried to do that all these years ago. They tried to go out on the road on their own, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like, on one hand, I think I look at the music industry and it's so crazy to me that people think, oh, there's an artist. I know, I will try to take every last dime from that person. You know what I mean? Like in the way that Spotify does, or all of these systems that are kind of like these huge systems that get set up so that they're actually taking advantage of artists, right? Because to me, creating art is this, it's what makes us human. It's so important and it should be revered. And instead, there are these whole systems that are set up in order to kind of keep the artist, as low as possible. On the other hand, you're completely right, where it's like, I don't want to be a booking agent. I don't want to be a promoter. I don't want to be I don't want to be the person who sweeps up at the end of the night. I don't want to be the sound person. I don't want to be, and I think that, as a musician, when I walk into a venue, I look at we're equal. I'm equal to the person sweeping the floor. I'm equal to the person bartending. I'm equal to the promoter here because we're all in the same place trying to do the same thing, which is to bring people together, and to give them time where they can kind of celebrate being alive for a while, and no job is perfectly wonderful. Every job has its highs and its lows. And I think it's really important to be completely respectful to all of the people who are putting on the show, at every level. Could it be more equitable? Our whole society could be more equitable, obviously, in many, many ways. And I admire artists who really try to make a difference and to speak out about things that are not equitable and are kind of rigged against people. But at the same time, I also recognize that it's a difficult business. And people lose a lot of money. I mean, there are whole people who put on huge festivals and nobody comes. And, they lose everything, and I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not that I don't. It's not that I think that he's wrong in any sense, and it's obvious that there are all of these groups and these people out there that are always trying to take advantage of people, especially talented people who produce things for them that they can't produce for themselves. And I get what he's saying, and I get what people like him are saying when they're talking about. But I think that it's a very I think it's a very short-sighted view of what it is that they do. I have no doubt that there have been issues, just like there have been issues with every single record company and every single step along the way. Look, the comic books, it's another industry that's just like that. It's a creative industry, and there are all these people that are built up around the creative people to help them distribute, do the things, put value on their product, whatever it is, and put those things out there. And they had the same problems. They went through all of the same problems that the music industry has gone through in terms hell, they haven't even resolved one of them yet, and that's digital distribution. They haven't even got there yet. At least the music industry figured that out. It may not be perfect, but they at least figured it out, and it's better than just people copying their stuff and playing it for themselves. I mean, I guess a few pennies per play is better than no pennies per play, and I guess eventually everybody will figure it out. I think at this point, I think everybody's kind of lucky because the sort of the rock star, finding the rock star, record label rock star thing, it's so different today. It's so much different. It's so much easier for any individual to take and produce music and put it out there. And I'm not even talking about AI and things like that. I'm talking about just an individual who wants to use tools and use the technology to put their music out there. Anyone can do it. And so I don't know if we have a future of big rock stars like we used to. I think we'll have very, very much splashes. People hit it. You'll have your great new TikTok hit or whatever that comes across and somebody's going to make some money from. But it's definitely a changing landscape. The technology has changed it, not just from the distribution, but then again, the creative side of it as well, and being able to produce it. And it's a humbling thing, I imagine, for a lot of artists to be at this point in life and realize, oh, well, a computer can basically do what I do because it's all just sort of math and numbers. And that's wow, what a thing to have to contend with, something that takes your artistic vision, the thing that you love so much and that you value so much yourself, and maybe other people do too, but you value it more than anyone, and realize that it's something that only is only of interest to somebody it's of interest to, because it's not particularly hard to create necessarily. It's an interesting battle we have going on right now between the sort of technology and the artists, and as a creator, as somebody who can draw and paint and plays multiple instruments and has all these skills built up in there. I look at it and I think, wow, it's great for someone like me who, I can jump on to a computer and I can produce a lot of things that I could never produce in a very short period of time, or that I would have to pay somebody else more money than I can afford to be able to do what it is that I do. And so I think that if nothing else, these technologies, these new things that we're experiencing in creating art, give people without all of the tools and resources, the money, whatever it is, to be able to put themselves out there, a bigger chance to be able to put themselves there. Yeah, there's a lot more people out there, but everybody gets their shot at this point because it's kind of a little bit easy.
Yeah, well, I think that I think it's really we're in an interesting time. I mean, I really thought that when the all of the technology came out where people could record in their bedrooms, right? It's like, wow, like everybody can when the big record labels started to really suffer because, people started to realize like, oh, actually, I don't need to go to the big fancy recording studio and do this anymore. I can do it in my room. I can create stuff that people want to listen to. And I'm all for that because to me, like, my goal has never been to be a rock star, right? My goal has always been for self expression. Like, there's something in me that wants to translate my experience in the world into art, right? Like there, and I've been that way since I was a kid. There's something in me where I find the I find making that transition between what I'm feeling inside to being something tangible that I can put into the world. I find that like it's like I need to do that, right? And the fact that anybody who feels that way can do that, I think is really wonderful. So I think, yeah, it's like AI will be making music and, will be writing things and everything. But I think where we're going to come to is like, do I want to hear what that person has to say? And that's why I think more and more it's become this, where we want to know the artist, right? We want to know what the artist's bedroom looks like. We want to know what the artist's house looks like. We want to know what that artist is doing because by knowing that, then we connect more deeply to the way that the output that they're doing, the way that they're seeing the world, so that it can be inspiring to me for the way that I live my life or something. And so I don't think that will go away. And I think that people who, want to be big and famous will always find ways to do that. But I think most artists, especially ones who last for a long time, are people who they just have a desire to translate the world into their particular vision and put that into some form of art. And I made my peace with that a long time ago. Like I'm not good at self-promotion. I'm not good at, creating a persona. I'm not good at being anything other than I am. And so I don't know that I'll ever have a wide audience of things, but the people who like my stuff are the people who like my stuff. And that's all I can do. I don't have any control of it once it goes outside of myself. And I have to be okay with that because it's a purely artistic expression. It's not to be something else. Yeah, I guess
That's good because I think that there are a lot of artists who do seem to miss that. They seem to forget that, especially if they do get any sort of popularity, if they do start to get any sort of notice. And they sometimes they just kind of forget that it's about the creation, it's about that process, and the fact that once you burst something into the world, it's no longer yours. That's something that a lot of artists, I think, are really trying to deal with at this point. It's you've reduced my art, my creativity to this machine, or they're feeling that way, and that they need to change that thought within themselves, and it's that much harder to be noticed and to share a message with somebody. Well, that's why I was talking about the similarities with the comic book industry, because it's done the same thing where you've gone through the period of growth and creation of the big industry itself, and then the industry itself has gone through its changes, and it's come out the other side to where it's not that big of an industry anymore. It's still out there, it's still big, there's still people doing all of this and creating it, but they don't own everything. In the 90s, the late 80s and early 90s, a bunch of the people looked at the literal gatekeepers at DC and Marvel and said, you know what, we're creatives and we don't need your mechanism, we don't need your machine, we don't need your rules, watch this. And they all walked out and they went and started their own company, and Image Comics now is the big three. It's the other guy in comic book publishing. And so the parallels are really exactly the same. It's like, oh, well, here, you're not paying me enough for my work. You're not marketing my work enough. You're not letting me do the work I want to do. I will leave your system and I will go do it for myself. And we're at that now. I think we're at a point of a renaissance with creativity in general across the board. It's completely open because it doesn't matter that machines have been able to do it. Machines have been able to do my job for a long time, a lot longer than, an automated radio station and automated broadcasting. That's been going on for decades, many moons. And so I sort of look at these things coming up like this, and I think, well, be better than the machine.
Well, I mean, isn't that where podcasts come from? It's like all of the radio stations started to be automated, and then suddenly this new thing happened where people were like, "No, we want to hear what people have to say. We want to hear real conversations. We want to hear, other people like what music this particular person wants to play." So yeah, I think it.
Well, and I think you were right about the intimacy of it all too, because I think the intimacy is easier now. Everybody's doing it in their room. I mean, it's right there. It's, my Alesis drum set is right over there, right out of camera. I see yours just right there.
That's right. Yeah, it's right next to
the edge
me.
of it. Because I have the same cage there, the same.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, everybody's doing it in their home. I mean, you see what it's like. I mean, this is staged, but not really. I mean, that's, if you were to look at the rest, there's Legos, more comic books, I mean, it's not, it looks positioned because I have a camera pointed at it, but it's not like that's different than the rest of my house necessarily.
Right.
And that's it, right? You hear this song, you hear this thing that brings out a particular emotion in you, and you feel, oh, I'm happy, or I'm sad, or I relate. And you want to know, well, why does the artist feel that way, think that way, say that thing that they said? Is it because they experienced it too, that they see it the same way you do, or do they see something completely different and came at it from a wholly different angle to get to the same place that you are? And I guess you see that now if you're in the bedroom with them as they're making the instruments. I think Bo Burnham. You know who Bo Burnham is?
Yeah.
He is amazing. He's just a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about.
That's right.
That is the guy that is a huge comedian, hilarious, a musician as well. Totally made his popularity on the internet. Didn't do the stand-up thing, make his bones, until after he was already popular, already had albums, it's just an amazing sort of reversal of the way you do things, but not really.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have something true to say, you put it out into the world, and somebody will listen, somebody will connect to you. And you have to be okay with the number of people who feel that way.
Yeah. Well, you got to be honest, right? Because there's only two ways to do it. There's you, or there's make it up, right? It's all imaginary. It's all fake. None of it's about me. It's all about the mask. It's all about the performance. I'm a different person than I am on the stage. This is me. This is what you get.
I can love those artists, I mean, I feel like Tom Waits is somebody like that, where I don't know that we know who Tom Waits is, by his songs. He takes on the characters of who he's singing about. And I love that, and I feel like I hear him in, like, some of the songs are so plaintive, and, you really hear, I can hear the emotion behind it. And yet I don't know anything about, necessarily about his life. It's a mask, a kind of mask that he's wearing, but I love the mask. And so I go along with that. And so I'm not saying that everybody needs to be, a folk singer. I love spectacle. I love, I love the camp. I love all of it, and it's all different ways of expressing yourself. And if it speaks to you, then wonderful, Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it when people are critical of a thing that they don't even participate in. that they're not,
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
somebody's critical of band or music or something that they've never even listened to. Because you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like the idea, you don't like the visual of it. Well, I'm sorry, there's more to it than that.
People are funny about that. It's like I remember my friend from Germany, and when I met her, she was like, "I hate the Rolling Stones," and I was like, "You hate the Rolling Stones? Like, isn't there any part of the Rolling Stones you don't like?" And when I like really was asking her about her, it came about that she didn't like the people who liked the Rolling Stones. It wasn't about the music. It was like in Germany, like she equated them with certain people who had kind of bullied her in high school who listened to that music. And so it was the people who liked, it wasn't about the band. And it's funny when you kind of dig into people, it's like, oh, you don't like the people who like that music, but you haven't really even given the music a chance, right? So yeah, it's a funny thing how we
I don't know
associate
what it is
stuff with
that brought
music.
that. It was something that I saw the other day, just flipping through YouTube, and it was some old school MTV DJ that I guess people think his opinion about music matters. Um, and he was bashing, I guess he hates him. Another one, a ridiculous phrase. I hate something I don't. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's weird.
Hmm.
Um, Steel Panther.
Oh,
And
Steel Panther. Uh-huh.
yeah, because Steel Panther is amazing musicians, but they put on a show that is reminiscent of 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
those
whole.
those guys are amazing musicians.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
unbelievable. I remember
Hmm.
hearing them sort of 30 years ago, and
Well,
because
I
I had a
think they were
buddy,
weren't they
my,
in weren't they some of them in the Atomic Punks, which was a Van Halen tribute band
a
that was,
tribute band, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
was amazing. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
amazing musicians,
Yeah.
and that it's such a weird thing to me to have somebody that is you know a name, an important person. Okay, so the whole thing to me is weird about hating on things at all.
Hmm.
So I do this, and I do some short form content for like the comic books. So I'll do reviews for comic books, new books that are out, things like that. And I can't imagine wasting my time producing a piece that says, here's stuff that sucks. Why don't you check out my opinion on things that I hate? First of all, why would I waste the time on those things that I don't like? And then after that, what's the point? What's the point of me expressing my opinion about things that I don't like to other people, when I can talk about the things that I do like, the things that I did enjoy, the things that are that may. Why concentrate on the negative of things? And it's such a weird thing to me. It happens every time at the at the end of the year, the beginning of the year. Because you get these wrap ups, right? You get somebody wrap it up. Well, 2025, what sucked about 2025? Well, all sorts of stuff. Can we concentrate on the stuff that didn't suck? Is that something that we can look at? It seems to me to be such a waste of time to hate on anything. Let them sort of live rent free in the mind, like they say.
Well, I mean, that is like basically how I feel about anybody who comments on things on social media. It's like, really, you're going to spend that amount of time to say something nasty on our video? Like, just move along. Like, if you don't like it, move along. I don't get that. But I really I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you had a quote in there that said, I believe that people are basically good, and I was like, oh, I like Michael because I believe that too. I think that people are basically good. And I think that if you believe that about people, you have the same conversation. Like, why would you spend time talking about stuff you hate? Because it's like we're basically positive people and want to see the good in things, right?
Well, and it doesn't do us any good. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. Focusing on the things that you don't like, especially if you can't do anything about them. That's the biggest thing. Is it so often people are talking about things that they can't do anything about, and that frankly don't even affect them. So what is it? What is it that has that has you so disconnected from yourself that you're connected to this thing that you don't even like, you don't even want? And it's so weird to me. I get going through and making your opinion known about the things that you don't like. You see something political or something like that, and you drop your opinion in there, and you move on. I get that. I see that. Drop your little comment and just keep walking. And that's fine. But to sit there and sort of look for a reason to be angry and upset, it's weird to me. I don't even like watching the drama television. I don't
I
want to
don't either.
be
Yeah.
in somebody else's world of drama and disconnection and discontent, and I there's enough of that in real life. Why would I want to go out of my way to sort of cultivate that around me with other people? It's such a weird thing.
I feel like I'm talking to myself. That's really funny.
I it, what it I guess I'm still just looking for the answer to it, because I'm not that guy. I've
Yeah.
never been that guy. I don't want to be angry, upset. Those things don't make me feel good. Get a
Well,
headache and
I think what I've discovered, because there are people in my life who um, they need to point out the things that went wrong, right? And I get off stage and there are things that they need to immediately point out, like, oh, you guys fucked up that song, or oh, that didn't work, or whatever it is. And I think it's a way for them to say that they, one, were paying attention, and two, um, that they know, and I think it's there's a deep kind of insecurity, I think, in a lot of us, where we feel like, if we can point out what is not working, then it gives us a sense of like, oh, okay, we know, we're able to see inside of things. We're kind of in the know in that way. And so, most of the time when people are saying really negative things, I just kind of seek directly into their insecurities. And again, I'm not talking about political acts that I think we need to speak out against. I'm talking about like art. When we're looking at somebody's creation, somebody spent that time to do things. Now, if I say I feel like you could have worked harder on it, well, that might be my opinion, but it's not something that I really feel like I need to say, because I feel like any artist, true artist, knows when what they did was half-assed, or could have been better. Like, I always felt like anything you can say to me, I've said to myself so much harsher. you know so I really don't need you to comment on that, on on how you think that it could have been better, because believe me, I wish it was better. So yeah, I think it's insecurity. I think people are looking for ways to feel like they matter in the world, and for a lot of people, the way that they matter is by pointing out everybody else's problems. Yeah.
I think it gives them some weird sense of control. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
well, I pointed out the problem. That means you can fix it.
Hmm.
And then it's no
Hmm.
longer a problem. So I did
Mm.
you a favor.
Yeah. 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 Unsolicited comments. I definitely solicit, uh, you know, um, comments about art from particular people, that I want to hear them say, like, actually, Clem, that sucks. You need to redo that. But I don't want to hear that from people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and just the average sort of person that just has something to say. Yeah. And
Hmm.
well, and that's exactly what we were just talking about, but the intimacy of the music, right? Well, you hear
Hmm.
this person say a thing, and it's like you want to know, do they really believe that thing? Is that really what they believe, or is that emotion talking, or is that the moment talking? And do they not really believe these things? And I think it's a testament to some music for sure that the artists do believe in the things, that they are real, and that's what makes them good. But then there's the other things, like the sort of epic adventure tales, things like that, that are clearly not real, as it were. And a song about the rhyme of the ancient mariner, really? But wow, what a song,
Hmm.
right?
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know, I know. Yeah, I know. Art is wonderful. It's like we like different things for different reasons. I love it.
Yeah, and it's probably a good thing too, because there are so many different ways to sort of talk to somebody,
Hmm.
and to get down to ideas and values, and that's something that we're struggling with all the time. We're struggling with as people all the time. We're always trying to find new ways to communicate, and it's because we communicate poorly. It's not these tools, these electronic things, these devices, these social media, and things like these. These are not examples of broken tools, things that don't work. These are things that expose that we ourselves are broken, that we ourselves don't know how to communicate, that we ourselves don't know how to manage sort of massive input and feedback from other people. That these are the things that it exposes. That it doesn't expose anything that Twitter's not a bad tool, but there's a lot of bad people swinging that tool around that are on Twitter. But that's true of everything. That's if you go anywhere in the world and look at it, the majority of people, I believe, again, are good and are wanting to do good, but that doesn't mean they are good at what they do,
Hmm.
and including being a good person. They want to be a good person at their core, and they want the values for themselves, for other people as well, the things that they value, but they don't know how to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, there's an idea about in like counseling models where we have like everybody has kind of a core wound, right? Like when we're growing up, the first thing that happens to us that really kind of breaks us open a little bit, and all of us have this thing. And so there's a wound that you have. And what happens is we protect that wound and we create the mask for a mask of personality so that people can't see into the wound. They can't be re-wounded, right? And so the personalities that we're seeing, the person we're meeting is actually the mask that has been created to hide that wound, right? And many people, if the wound when you were a young person was to make you feel small or like you didn't have any power, then maybe the mask that somebody puts on is somebody who is always in charge, always in power,
You mean
right?
a cop? You mean the
Yeah.
whole idea of
Well,
the
I mean,
the cop that gets bullied?
we can put this, this mask on many faces that we know, right? And so it's a really interesting way to look into the world and to see people that we think are so like, that are impenetrably awful and think, wow, that mask is so thick. That wound must be so deep, right? And when we look at that, I think that opens us up to some kind of compassion in the world. And it's difficult when people are being just complete and utter assholes to really have compassion for those people. But I don't think that we're going to solve any of our issues unless we connect to that feeling of being able to see the perpetrator as somebody who's been wounded. When we do that, we have more understanding, and it's not that we excuse the behavior, but that we're able to deal with the person in a better way. um, and maybe come up with solutions to stop the behavior. So that's just my my idealist self, my
No, I
talking,
think
but
I think it's
yeah.
right. I think it's fairly obvious, right? I think that's
Hmm.
why we come to some of these conclusions of this sort of deep wound sort of idea there is that it becomes fairly obvious when you look at people. And if you can take the time, if you have the time with them, you can actually get down to what it is that is wounded in them and maybe even heal it. The problem being is that we are talking about something that it tends to happen when we are younger, and we do tend to bury it underneath, and we'll build up an entire lie around a life and a structure around this lie on top of that, and try to navigate through life with this core problem still residing in us and not dealing with it, never having dealt with it. And I don't know if it's as big a deal, if it's a huge thing for a lot of people, but it's obvious on some people, very much so, because they're the ones
Yeah.
that they end up, you're still talking to them in their 50s and 60s, and they still have these sort of behaviors like a young child almost. They still have a response like a young child. They're not the response or the behaviors of somebody who's an adult, somebody who's learned to deal with things that they don't like or things that they don't understand or things that hurt them.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think that when I'm reading, nasty comments on videos or something, I always think, I wonder if they know that I can see how much they're hurting this person. Like, I wonder if they understand that I feel a lot of compassion for this person who's just saying this terrible thing on my video. It's like, oh, poor guy.
Well, and then the most damaged of them seem to get the most power and seem to have the right. I mean, look at
Except I
what
think
we've
we
got
all
going on right
know.
now in the system, and with all of these
Yeah,
people that have
I
hurt other people, and they're people in positions of power, and you listen to them, and you know that they just don't care. They don't care that they've hurt other people. They don't care that they're still hurting other people. They
yeah,
just don't care, and that's their wound. That's
yeah.
their wound inside.
And it ends up
Not
wounding us
and
all.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah.
ends up
It's an
hurting us all.
expression.
Yeah. Yeah. That complete lack of empathy, like that ability for empathy has been completely, destroyed in them. And, it's terrifying, but it's also, something that we really have to deal with. you
Well,
know.
imagine this. Imagine you're already somebody who is rich, irresponsible, not really good at doing anything necessarily except having money and being rich, and then you you get a bunch of people telling you, "Hey, why don't you run for president?" And you do it, and somebody tries to take a pot shot at you and almost kills you. You think that that person who's already broken, already not able to just be like the rest of us, in so many different ways. You really think that that person's mental state is ideal for being the president? Maybe you think that it's a funny thing to me to sit back and watch, because with conspiracies and politics, this and that and the other thing, you get people running around out here saying, "Oh, well, that was fake, that was staged, that the guy that shot Trump in the ear or whatever, and that was all fake and staged, and that he was in on it, and that sure, he was in on letting somebody shoot him in the head, that he was in on that." You don't think it's much more likely that he was already a broken, damaged, nasty individual with more money than brains, maybe, and that it just sets him off in another direction, and the direction that says, "I don't care, that it doesn't matter that who you are or what you do, that you're all vulnerable, that we can all be just like that the very next day? You think that helps somebody who's a narcissist? You think that helps somebody who is, I mean, what we see in this particular man who's president right now? I see a damaged person in there, damaging everything in his way to get what he wants. And maybe other people see it differently, but I think it's fairly obvious, especially just the change from the previous presidency when he was already president, right? And what he would have done then versus what he's doing now. I think that I think it's a step up. It's a leveling up, a ratcheting up of the nastiness that's within somebody like that. And now he just has total control. He can just do whatever he wants.
Well, the interesting thing is the way that we see power, right? And I think a lot of people see that he's doing whatever he wants and sees that as power. But if you look at somebody the way that we're looking at somebody, as somebody who's basically broken, like fundamentally broken, then we don't give them the power. And in that case, the power dissolves, right? And so I think that's kind of what I focus on is, where is the real power? And the real power is in people who see truth. And there are a lot more of us than there are of these broken individuals. And as time goes on, we actually start to see into the actual weakness there. And people get stronger in being able to stand up to that because they're able to see into the true weakness that is been the mask,
right, and so that's what it is, right? That's what we're dealing with is the growing mask, the changing mask. They're getting closer. I'm out here. I'm exposed. They're figuring me out. I got to change the mask. I got to put on a new mask, or I got to alter the grimace on the mask, or whatever it is.
And when we don't fall for the mask, when we see directly into the brokenness, then people feel empowered to say no, to say no to the behavior. Yeah. And I think I do feel that it's happening, it's not pretty and it's not going to be fun, I think, but, I think that's ultimately what has to happen, because that kind of power, it doesn't stay long, it just can't.
That's the danger of it, right?
It doesn't prop it up.
Because he's not leaving. This is the same problem with the sort of the toxic new wave feminism or the toxic new wave maleism. The Andrew Tates and people like that are. It's very short-sighted. Yeah, it works for now. Yeah, it's a response to what's happening right now. But what about the future? What about setting up the future for the people that you leave behind, your sons and your daughters? The guys, somebody pointed this out the other day, a guest that I had on, he said, I blame it on old white guys. And I said, well, yeah, most people do. But he had a reason why, and it was because, sort of during the 80s and 90s when we had that second wave feminism and some of these things were coming around, and they said, you know what, fine, we're in power, we don't care, do whatever you want, run roughshod. But they didn't really pay any attention to the damage that was going to do to their sons and their grandsons. And so now we have this time now where we have these incels and all these insecurities and people running around arguing about whether sex determines who a person is instead of just a person determining who they are and who they love, and weird questions about who we are in reality, all because of some ideology that was about grasping power, but inside a place where they couldn't really grasp power. And so now it's a political thing, and it's an interesting thing. And unfortunately, we're off into some other things, and we're just out of time. This has gone by so quickly. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
I'd love that. Thank you, Michael. Yeah,
That'd be
thank
great. I
you.
really appreciate you
Yeah.
taking the time. Thank you so much. Clementine Moss, she's a spiritual counselor. You can look for her book From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Why is there such a big fence, Dad?
Well, millions of people come to America in search of a better life, and we've decided we don't need that many.
Did the Supernuisance phones come through the fence?
No, Bobby. Khan applied the legal way. Sometimes the system fails us.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy.